All right, here we go. Monday Fun Day as we've got not one, not two, but three NBA playoff games we've got to break down for you here. Tonight, of course, maybe two of these teams will be facing elimination here tonight. One is on the brink of elimination, and here to help us figure it all out, oh boy, you guys are in for a treat here tonight. Welcome in. We got, it could be Brian Leonard, but Brian Leonard's never been that ugly. So we're going to go with
come on
Brian
now.
Power. That's right, Brian Power in the house here. And, of course, Double R1L Steve Merril in the house here, ready to roll. Happy Monday, gentlemen. Always a pleasure to see you here. Shall we start in Miami? Why don't we start there, where this game coming up, first game on the slate, is going to involve, well, those Celtics taking on the Miami Heat here now. 10.5, what we're seeing. 203.5. The total is interesting here, BP, simply because, well, what we see this pretty much the same in the last game, although Miami couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat and it didn't get over. I'm wondering, because there was a lot of over money in that last game here. Do we get a big push late in this one as well? How do you approach this in the all-important Game 4 in Miami?
Yeah, I think the total is interesting, Joe, for this game. For the reasons you laid out there, the over did take money in Game 3, and we're right back at 203.5 for Game 4. But, curiously enough, we're not seeing that over money. We're not seeing, because the total closed at 206 last game. Little to no line movement here. And it reminds me of what we saw with Clippers Mavs in the last two games of that series. Game 3, if you recall, it was 209.5. And then the morning of the game, that number flew up. Game stayed under. Game 4, it opened at a similar number. There was no line movement, just like this Game 4. And wouldn't you know, Clippers Mavs yesterday did fly over. It was a nice 4% win for me and my clients. So call me crazy. I am expecting more scoring in this game than what we saw in Game 3, where the two teams shot. It wasn't just Miami, Joe. The two teams combined to shoot a dismal 20 of 65 from three. I think you can at least count on one team to improve its three-point shooting from the last game. And believe it or not, if you want to drill down, I actually think Miami over its team total. You can find 95.5 at DraftKings. I cashed the Heat's team total over in Game 2. Of course, that was the game where they set an NBA playoff record with 23 made threes. Not saying they're going to be anywhere near that prolific again tonight, but 96 points, not asking for much. They were, yes, even more atrocious than Boston from three last game, 9 of 28. No Jimmy Butler is significant, but doesn't affect the Heat's three-point shooting per se. So I expect we're going to see more points tonight, specifically from Miami, because they're attempting more threes than usual in this series. It's a good underdog strategy. They're going to hit more than they did in Game 3 tonight at home.
So it is interesting, Merril, because the Miami is, I think, approaching this the correct way. They've slowed it down to a snail's pace. They're chucking up, 44% of their shots are coming from outside. I mean, they don't want to get into a track meet here, obviously. With Boston, they're hoping they can contest enough of the Boston threes to give themselves a chance, which they did in Game 2, and they're going to have to make a few threes here, which makes the variance for this total all over the map here, because the market certainly did think we were getting an over last game, but Miami couldn't score enough to get it there. So what do you think we get here tonight in Game 4?
Yeah, it's a textbook example of where these one-game scenarios, whether it's, one game in the playoffs or it's the NCAA tournament, which is the most random of all because of the three-point shooting, it's very difficult on one-game scenarios. And now for the series, Boston's going to win. We all know they're going to win this series. Whether Miami can steal a game or not, most likely is going to have to happen tonight. They're a 10.5-point dog at home. You can only imagine what they're going to be on the road. They were 14.5 to 15-point dogs in games 1 and 2. Granted, they did win one of those. But as Bryan said, it's because they hit a franchise-high 23 threes. And, oh, by the way, guess what the Pacers did yesterday? They hit a franchise-high 22 threes. So we've seen it happen twice within a week. That's the new NBA we live in. It's what makes it a little tricky handicapping. So what you have to look at, none of these were 100% plays, but you can still find 55, 60% edges that win long-term. And there's a couple things that jump out to me. First of all, Boston is obviously the dominant team, and they have won by 20. And the two games they've won by 20 were focused spots. First of all, game one was an extremely focused spot because they lost to the Heat last year in the Eastern Conference Finals, so they did not overlook them. They obviously came out flat in game two. We talked about it on the show here last Wednesday that might happen, and Miami stole a game. They did not come out flat in game three on Saturday night. I had a strong best bet on Boston for my clients. It's part of my 11-2 start to the NBA playoffs, and one of those winners was the Celtics minus the 9. It closed as high as minus 10. They won by 20. But what jumps out to me about game 3 versus 1 and 2 is that in game 1, the Celtics were plus 30 from three-point range. They only won by 20. The Heat actually had a 20-point edge, points in the paint. Game 2, the Heat were plus 33 from 3, and they only won by 10. And Boston was the team with a plus 20 edge from the paint. Well, game 3, Boston won by 20, but they were only plus 6 from three-point range. And the best NBA three-point shooting team hit only 29.5%, and they still won by 20. And, oh, by the way, they were plus 8 points in the paint. So that's a really bad sign for Miami going forward. It's a tricky game because, yes, if Boston comes in flat like they often do, like they did in the first 3 games of the Eastern Conference Finals last year, then Miami might be able to steal one again. But I just don't think that's going to happen. I think the flat spot was game 2. I think this is all business now for the Celtics. And the fact that they won by 20 despite not shooting well from 3 is a really bad sign for Miami going forward.
So it sounds like you think there's a chance. I could be wrong there. It sounded like, did you hear that, BP? It sounded like he thinks there's a shot there with Miami tonight. You don't think as much, huh? Is that BP?
No, I think there's a chance. Look, going back to the team total, this is why I prefer the Heat team total to taking the points. One, we don't have to worry about it. The Heat can go over their team total and still get blown out, right? We don't have to worry about the Boston side of the equation, what they have to do on offense. So I like that luxury. And, oh, by the way, off a loss this season. Now, granted, playoff basketball is a lot different than the regular season, but Miami averages 112.2 points per game off a loss. Now, I think we would all be absolutely floored if Miami scored 112 points in this game. But again, that team total, 95.5, 96.5, depending on the market. So that's just not a lot of points if you think they can hit just a little bit better from 3. I like what you brought up about their strategy, Joe, because I agree with you. It's a great underdog strategy. But Steve referenced the NCAA tournament. I think it's too bad for Miami that in the NBA they play a series, because in the NCAA tournament, one game, you slow the pace down, you hit your threes, anything can happen. Over the course of a 7-game series against a superior team, Miami, especially without Butler's obviously outgunned. But I think they can put more points on the board tonight than they did in game number 3. Interesting, there's been no line movement on the side either, even though Boston is for sure a public side.
Yes.
I'm not sure, Brian.
I was going to ask you, Steve. I was going to ask you that, Steve, because we saw this at 9.5 yesterday, and obviously it's climbed up to 10.5 now. But it's that whole Heat. I'm worried that the public's all over Miami, and that's the way this could go.
Yeah, it's a great point. I meant to mention it earlier because nothing heavy, but I do see a little bit of a lean towards Miami. I would definitely say Boston's not a public side. In fact, we saw this in game 2. There was public sentiment on both the Pelicans and the Heat last Wednesday. The Heat did cash. They won outright. But once again, let's put this in perspective. In order to win by 10, they had hit a franchise record 23 threes just to win by 10. So that's why there is a chance if they do it again, which isn't likely. But we saw what happened to the Pelicans last Wednesday in game 2. They got blown out as a public dog. Public is leaning towards Miami again. And the reason isn't necessarily that they're on Miami. They just don't play big favorites. And I see this a lot when I do my NFL Fade the Public video every year in the fall, is that you get the biggest mismatches on the board. You assume those are really public plays, but they're actually just kind of neutral games because in the NFL, the public doesn't like to lay double digits. And I think that's the case here with Boston. And it's surprising to me also, guys, that the line opened 9, closed 10 in game 3, in which I thought was a fantastic situation for Boston off the bounce back. And now this line is 10.5 after the easy blowout win. So the line value has kind of been sucked out of this one. I'm not looking to get in front of the best NBA team in the league in Boston. But I think that's another reason there's a little bit of public sentiment on the Heat, is this line is inflated in what should be technically a better spot for Miami instead of a game 3 spot the other night.
Yeah, it's And it's not correlated here either, guys, is it? Because how you covering a double-digit spread and backing the under? Like, you got to pick, like, one or the other, right? Like, you're not going to, we're going to have 190 points. Well, that's going to make clearing it by 10 and a half even that much harder. So it's the 3-point variance that kills us in this as from a total perspective. But I will say this, and BP, you might know this off the top of your head. I'm seeing 55 and a half first half points for the Celtics team total. They have cleared that in every game, have they not? In the first half here, they have left little doubt, I think, in the first half when it comes to their team total. Because it's been now, this will be the fourth game where it's hovering around that 54 and a half, 55 and a half. I don't think they've had a problem covering it.
No, they're averaging 61 points per game in the first half in this series, and that's kind of right in line with what they averaged during the regular season. They were one of the best bet-on teams during the regular season. In the first half, they averaged 62.8 points in the first half. And it's interesting, I talked about Miami's team total. What about Boston's team total, guys? It's sitting pretty low, too, when you think about this team.
Yes.
What is it? It's at 106 for the game? 106 for Boston. You hear that number and you're like, oh, that's low. But Boston actually hasn't cleared it in 2 of the 3 games. They scored, 104 last game in a dominant victory. They did cover the spread in an under last game, Joe. But, the previous game, they just scored 101. Even in the big game 1 win, it was just 114. So that just speaks to how Miami has slowed this tempo down, which, realistically is their only shot, I suppose, of extending this series. But, I'm kind of with Steve that this is probably over in 5 games, I would reckon.
Yeah, I don't mind the first half team total over. I don't mind the full game over. The one thing we know about Miami, if they're making shots, they're scoring 100 points. It's that simple.
Yeah.
If they're not making threes, they're not sniffing 100 points. And then we're looking at unders, and then you've got to hope that Boston makes up the slack. So it's an interesting game, but one I would cut in half without a doubt. And yes, John Finley, I appreciate you sending out the sorry, Joe, feeling like the Celtics crushed them tonight. Listen, all I wanted was one cover, and we got the outright win, so I'm good. We're good here at this point, and I wouldn't go anywhere near the 10 and a half points at this point, just simply because none of us would wake up tomorrow, Merril, shocked and went, Miami covered the game. What a shocker. Yeah, they may not win, but it wouldn't shock me at home if they muster up enough. And I tell you, not so much because of Miami, Merril. You and I talked about this over the weekend. How much trust do you have in the Celtics putting back-to-back efforts together? This team has been the most inconsistent all year, and it's driven you crazy.
Yeah, I was just going to say none of this has anything to do with Miami. They're without Butler. Yeah. They're without Caleb Martin's averaging almost 20 points a game also, 2 of their most important players. So nothing has to do with Miami. It has to do with Boston. Does Boston come out and allow them to shoot 23 for 43 from 3? And a lot of that is just a lack of effort on the defensive side, in my opinion. Or do they come out and they do what they did in game 4? They have a 24-point lead. Game 3, a 24-point lead Saturday at halftime. I think the fact they have lost a game should mean a little less likely there's a letdown. That's why I'm in no hurry to get in front of Boston. If I had to play this, I would lean Celtics. But once again, just one of those games that's probably best left alone.
Yeah, I agree. I think money in the house. Damn it. Welcome in, my man. Don't mean to intrude, but just throwing in there a line as sharp money is all right. Well, we'll get to that one. Hold on. We're going to get to that here. We'll have a look at that game coming up. But don't forget, those of you joining us here today, we appreciate you, whether it be IG, Instagram, whether it be YouTube Shorts, on the vertical feed, whether or not you guys lunatics there in the YouTube chat room, we appreciate you. X in the house as well as Facebook. It's always a pleasure to see you guys. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up if you could. We'd certainly appreciate that. As we got to get ready for the end of the New Orleans Pelicans season tonight. Let's not forget that. Game 2 here as OKC looking to just slam the door here, much like the Minnesota Timberwolves did last night. The big question that we had with OKC, BP, coming into the last game was, all right, very young team, never been here before, done that. Can we trust them to go on the road in a playoff spot and win a game and not throw up all over themselves? Well, the answer was yes, no problem. And New Orleans actually gave them a pretty good fight early on, but OKC just, they showed me a little something there in game 3. But that was when they were, laying 1.5?
Yeah.
Now they're laying 5.5, maybe even 6 before. So the market has completely gone over the top, and I still don't know that it's going to matter because I don't see OKC losing this game.
Yeah, it's kind of a similar adjustment to what we saw in yesterday's Minnesota-Phoenix game. Yes, the T-Wolves finished off the sweep, but a couple things. One, Suns did come out strong. I had a first-half winner on the Suns in that game, so I don't really care that they're eliminated. They were ahead at halftime, and I'll take that. But there was a massive line swing in that game, similar, because remember, Phoenix closed -5 at home in game 3. Still at home, no injuries. They closed -1 for game 4. It's just the reverse here. Oklahoma City was closed 1.5 in the last game. Now they touched -5, despite the fact that, obviously Zion's hurt, but he was hurt the last game as well. Look, the Pelicans just have not been able to make shots. The 3-point shooting in this series from them has been absolutely atrocious. 27.8%. From the corner, 19% on corner threes, Joe, if you really want to get specific on it. They're just not making their shots. Underdogs when they're not hitting threes. They don't have a chance. Now, if they've been able to steal game 1, I would be interested in how this conversation sounds going into tonight. My guess is it would be a lot different. I'll throw this little trend at you. Game 3 road favorites, or game 4 road favorites, pardon me, teams that are up 3-0 and favored on the road in the series, 41-19 straight up in the closeout game. So history suggests this will, in fact, be the end of the road for New Orleans. But against the spread, you look at those games, it's a lot tighter. Honestly, I wouldn't want to lay it with Oklahoma City just because when the odds makers adjust like this, look, there was an adjustment in that Denver Lakers game when the Lakers were facing elimination. Look what happened. Now the Lakers have LeBron James. New Orleans does not have LeBron James, nor do they have Anthony Davis anymore. But still, it's an inflated number that I'm not running to lay necessarily. It's the whole key for the Pelicans is, can they improve the offensive numbers? They certainly can't get worse. I'll say that because first team since 2016 to score, 96 or less in 3 consecutive playoff games. That's not good.
Oh, my fear is, Merril, that we're going to have a group of, bettors who are going to go with the whole, just like they did with Phoenix last night, who was, I think, laying a point, which goes to our man Money's question in the chat. Shout out to you there, Money. He's going, what in the hell was that? -1 against the Suns last night. He's like, where is this money coming from? And how could the books be this ridiculously far off? Well, we could say the same thing last game here with OKC. They were -1. It wasn't even remotely close. We're all scratching our heads going, I don't see it here. Have they overreacted to this line move now up at 5? Because I think they were a 7.5 point favorite at home in game 1 and game 2. The lines do seem to be a bit all over the place here in a couple of these series.
Yeah, the big difference between this 3-0 versus the other 2 in the Western Conference this weekend, which was Lakers, Nuggets, and of course Timberwolves and Suns, is that you have a young, inexperienced team, an 8 seed, without their superstar here down 0-3, versus the Lakers with LeBron and Anthony Davis, or the Suns with Booker, Durant, and Beal, quality veteran teams. And those teams, for some reason, you would think the young teams wouldn't quit, but for some reason, those veteran teams seem to play harder in game 4. And we saw it last year when the Lakers were down 0-3. They had a 15-point lead at halftime, but then still lost. Well, let's look at last night. Well, first of all, let's look at Saturday night. The Lakers had a halftime lead, and they held on to win the game finally. But then last night, the Suns also had a halftime lead. They covered the first half. Their team total went over in the first half, just like the Lakers did Saturday, like the Lakers did last year. So I actually recommend in my daily video, which I do every day here on WagerTalk TV, I recommend it Suns first half, Suns first half team total over. And those both cashed last night, even though Phoenix lost the game and was eliminated. So I think, once again, if you're going to play New Orleans here, you got to look at the first half option, because as I said with the Phoenix game, I just don't see a scenario in which an 0-3 team gets down early and then decides to play hard in the second half. I mean, the bags are packed at that point. The only chance you have, especially for these home teams down 0-3, is that they have a little bit of energy early in the game. The crowd supports them, and their opponent also overlooks them a bit. And I think that could be the case here. So if you're going to take a look at the Pelicans, I would not play the +5 full game. I would look at the +1.5 first half. But look at that. The odds makers are onto it, right? Because the game line is 4.5 or 5, but the first half is only 1.5. So it's showing you right there that the betting markets, the odds makers, think that is the way to play this as well. And we saw this also in game 3. You mentioned Oklahoma City was a 1-point favorite. Keep in mind, they were a 1.5-point dog in the first half, because that was one of those game 3 0-2 teams that normally come out fast. The problem is the Pelicans did not. And just like Phoenix, they were in a good spot in game 3 Friday, and Phoenix played awful. That's a huge red flag for me. So I'm not recommending New Orleans. I'm staying away from this one for that reason. But if you are going to play the Pelicans, I think you're better off first half than full game.
Yeah, I kind of agree. And I also think that the Pelicans are at a point, BP, where Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum are going to take every damn shot. They're just going to, that's going to be it. They're at the point where Trey Murphy has been MIA in this series, and give credit to this OKC defense, because they have been phenomenal. And it's not just, man-on-man team defense. They're making the switches. They're covering. They're running up and down the court. I mean, it's been an actual pleasure to watch this young team put in the kind of effort there. I wouldn't mind fading all of the guys, because I think it's just going to be McCollum and Ingram are going to be the two guys in the second half that are going to get a bulk of the work, simply because they don't trust anybody else.
Yeah, I mentioned how collectively the Pelicans' offensive numbers can't get any worse than what we've seen the first 3 games. I think individually, I would say the same about Brandon Ingram, right? He's just been awful. The shooting numbers are terrible. They're just, you look at the numbers, it's not a shock. They're down 0-3. And look, I get the question marks about Oklahoma City coming into the series, but this was a team that had the second best point differential in the league behind the Celtics. New Orleans, you almost got a feel for New Orleans because they had the 6th best point differential and the 4th best net efficiency, yet they end up as the 8th seed. They lose Zion, and here we are. I feel the Pelicans deserved a lot better fate. I would co-sign what Steve said. Like I said, I was on the Suns last night in the first half money line. They got it done, and the mentality that he espoused there, where if a team that's down 0-3 in a series, if they're down at half, they're not going to magically rally in the second half. They're just going to throw in the towel and say, you know what, we'll see you next year. But the effort, the motivation is going to come right out of the gate. If you don't see it the first half, it's not going to come in the second half. So yeah, I agree. Attacking Pelicans first half would probably be the way to go in this one. And I do expect the Pelicans will shoot better tonight, simply because, again, they can't shoot any worse than what we've seen the first 3 games. Offensive rating, I believe, of 96.5. Ugly.
Yep. They have not scored more than 92 points in any of these 3 games against them here, Steve. So what are we looking? This is the lowest total of the series, I think, so far here tonight, right? We're looking at what, 205, 205 and a half, something in that ballpark here. Well, listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. What the hell makes us think they're going to hit the 100 mark here? Merril, you know what I mean? I get while it's dropped, but my goodness, their team total alone might be worth taking a look at here. The Pelicans team total, 101 and a half. How the hell are we getting a 101 and a half?
Yeah, a couple things on the total. First of all, these game 4s, when it's 3-0, I do kind of look for reasons to play overs, just like I talked about their team total over in the first half, because there's a couple reasons. First of all, I think the team down 0-3 plays a little bit more loose out of the gate. We've seen that with Phoenix, the Lakers. They've all gone over their team total so far this past week, down 0-3 at home. But the other reason as well is the other team up 3-0 sometimes maybe comes in a little complacent or takes their foot off the gas. That means less defensive intensity. This totals in game 1 was 216.5. The last 2 games was 210, 210. They opened this 205, like you said, Joe, but it's actually up to 208 now. And I even see some sharp books closer to 209. So we've seen a little bit what I think is sharp money come back in on the over after lowering it 5 points from game 2 and 3. A couple concerns that you have with the Pelicans just in general. First of all, they're without their superstar Zion Williamson. We all know that. But you talked about Brandon Ingram struggling, and it might not be a coincidence for a couple reasons. First of all, Dort is on him, an excellent defensive player. So it's not a shock he's been held in check. And then also, let's keep in mind, Ingram was out for over a month, almost a full month since mid-March. He comes back in the middle of April there for the last game against the Lakers and the play-in game against the Lakers. If you look at those last 6 games he's played since coming back, including the 3 in this series, he has scored 19 or less in 5 of those 6 games, yet his point total is at 20 again today. So he's been under this total in 5 of the 6 games since returning from injury, and he has a shutdown defender on him in Dort. It's interesting that we talk about McCollum because that's really their only other option now. But then you look at Oklahoma City. I think a guy that could bounce back here is Chet Holmgren. Holmgren. They all sound the same. Chet Holmgren had a very mediocre game with only 6 points. Keep in mind, he had 15 and 26 in the first 2 games, and his point total is 15.5 to the under. So if he gets anywhere near his normal shooting percentages, he's still getting plenty of looks. I think Holmgren could be worth a look over, and that also would help if it is a higher scoring game.
Well, because Valanciunas can't guard him. They got no answer for him. In fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I saw early this morning that over 1.5 threes for Holmgren was available at a pretty decent price, too. Like, what, Valanciunas is going to go out and guard him? Like, stop it. He's already attempted 6 threes in each of, I believe, the first 2 games, and he's gone over it. So, I think there's a lot of different ways you can attack this game if you don't want to lay it. But that's the whole thing here, Merril, with the way the odds are coming out, and they're talking about it. Bill and Money in the shorts chat are saying it kind of makes you question, like when you see Suns -1, and you're going, the Suns are not a better team. Like, what is going on? It makes you wonder, like, am I crazy thinking? Like, my eyes are deceiving me? I kind of feel the same way. I don't give a crap what the number is. OKC's the better team. Will probably blow them out of the arena here tonight. But the lack of consistency with the lines has certainly made people question whether or not their eyes are lying to them.
Well, Brian, I'll get your thoughts on this too. But I mean, one thing to point out is Phoenix was -4.5, went up to like 5.5 in game 3. So that was like a 4-point adjustment. And now we're seeing a 3 to 4 point adjustment here. So we are seeing the adjustment by several baskets. But yeah, these 0-3 teams do normally get swept more times than not.
Yeah. What do you think, BP? I mean, it kind of does make your head scratch here a little bit going, am I missing something here with this? Like, these teams aren't close.
Series, which is obviously now over, so maybe people don't want to hear about, but still, remember, Phoenix closed as the favorite going into the series. There was a big move in the market. People thought the Suns swept that regular season series. People thought the T-Wolves were in trouble, and it was just so I think that might have been why there was more faith in Phoenix in game 4, like Steve alluded to, than a young team like the Pelicans. I'll tell you what prop bet I'd like to see cash tonight in this game, and that is under a half for what a pro wants, what a pro needs. That absolutely
worst commercial in the history of mankind. God, that's awful.
That can't happen. That cannot happen.
It is awful.
Commercial. Please get rid of it.
Glad to hear that, Brian. Yes. Great minds think alike. That is really one of the worst. I cringe every time that's on. It's just painful to watch.
Yeah.
Painful.
Why would you make that commercial?
They'll come out looking like Fonzie. Like, what are we doing here, people? Now they're singing show tunes.
God, now you got it in my head. Now I'm feeling it again. I feel like I'm watching it, and it's ruined my whole afternoon, Brian.
Get him at it. Absolutely not.
What a pro was.
There we go. What is that? Oh,
he looks like Holmgren without the facial hair.
Terrible.
My goodness, that is Holmgren. That's Amish Holmgren. Amish, pre-Amish Holmgren.
Oh, my God, that is awful on so many levels. Nice hair, though, BP. I got to love that. All right, we do have one more game we got to get to here. And, of course, that game is going to be also an elimination opportunity for the Denver Nuggets here tonight, up 3-1 over the LA Lakers. I don't know if he's been ruled out yet, but obviously Jamal Murray still listed as questionable in this one. But quite honestly, much like Kawhi Leonard, and I had said this yesterday, the Clippers were a better team without Kawhi Leonard against Dallas. Sorry. And I think they showed it again yesterday where they weren't as bogged down. And it's not because Kawhi was 100%. It's because Kawhi Leonard at 65% does not help the Clipper. Jamal Murray at this point, who has obviously been nursing this calf injury, BP, is not helping the Denver Nuggets shoot any more than 28% from three in this game. It's absolutely ridiculous how bad Denver has been from three-point range, and a lot of that has to do with Jamal Murray not being 100% and not being able to shoot.
Yeah, what's interesting is we've seen the market come in on the under. I'm looking at the WagerTalk odds screen right now. The number's down to 216.5. But, Joe, if Murray is ruled out, we were talking about this before the show, I wonder if that's addition by subtraction. And that Denver, who has shot horribly from three, you take Murray, the biggest defender, out of the equation, all of a sudden maybe their three-point shooting improves. This has been such a fascinating series because not only have the Lakers led at half in all four games, they've been up by double digits at one point in all four games. If only they could have taken one of those first three games, again, a much different conversation, kind of similar to what we spoke about earlier, had the Pelicans been able to hold on in game one against the Thunder. Look, tip your cap to LeBron and company. They didn't get swept. They ended the long losing streak to the Nuggets. But look, Denver, it's a matter of when, not if, they move to round two and face the Minnesota Timberwolves in what I think will be a really fascinating Western Conference semifinal.
Looks like we're eating crow in here. What is it? Bokum Dano in the house just wants to remind us, Merril, you and I on Saturday were saying, accused him of maybe day drinking and sending him over to Instagram because he was all over the Lakers, and you and I, we thought he might have been half in a bag with Bloody Marys. But nope, you're right, Bokum. You are absolutely correct. The Lakers got one done. But I'll tell you what, also here, Merril, with the lack of shooting, I got to think this is still an over type of game here with them at home, because for as bad as they have been shooting and the amount of points that Denver has been scoring, I don't see this thing staying under either. I mean, 216 now, 216.5, maybe even as high as 217. I don't see an under in this one. I really don't.
Well, the problem is Murray's status is such a question mark, and he is 1 for 10 from three the last two games in LA. So he has not been helping them from outside that, but he had 22 in both games. He is still scoring, but this season, without him on the court, they're about 8% weaker offensively, about 8 points per 100 possessions, whereas they're about 3 points better per 100 defensively. So that's almost an 11-point difference per 100 possessions when he's on or off to the lower side. So that makes an over a little bit tricky if he doesn't play. Might be a good in-game situation here to wait and see what it looks like pregame. You can always get in when the game starts, see if he's out there, if he's moving well. And, of course, as Bryan said, the Lakers are 4-0 in the first half in this series. So if you like Denver, which I do think Denver closes this series out tonight, you could wait for an in-game opportunity and get a much smaller point spread and also know the status of Murray as well. So lots of different ways to approach this one.
Yeah, there is, and it's listen, I think it's no, Bokum Dano, we love you, man, but I do believe this one is over simply because I also don't think Denver wants anything to do now that they've kind of seen what else is going on. We've got tonight, we're going to have OKC sweep New Orleans. You just watch Minnesota handle business here, so what are they going to? They're not going to let LA get their pound of flesh from Denver here tonight. I think you get a huge effort. And oh, by the way, 71 points in the paint Denver allowed in that last game that the Lakers won. I do not see them being as poor.
No, and Michael Malone, he made a point about that. That's not just something that people have found. I mean, he was quite vocal. The Denver coach was about all those points in the paint the Nuggets allowed, Joe. And what's interesting about these first halves of this series is Denver was a good first half team in the regular season.
Yep.
I've been quite perplexed. It's one thing, the Lakers season's on the line the last game. Of course, they're going to come out with some motivation. Game 3 down 0-2 at home. But the first two games at home, Denver is especially good at home in the first half. So it's going to be really interesting to see, A, we monitor Murray's status, and B, how Denver comes out in the first half If Denver comes out in the first half, my guess is the Lakers probably not going to get back in it. And I would concur with the points you made, Joe. Denver sees these teams advancing, and specifically on their side of the bracket, right? Minnesota has already advanced. They don't want to give Minnesota any bigger rest edge than they already have. So if they close things out tonight, obviously that would behoove the world champions.
Yeah, no, I can't. I just don't see that happening. And all the comments and all the quotes coming out of Denver is they have not been pleased with the way they have played. Merril at all. Malone, even the Joker has had some comments about it. They know they've got to have a bigger effort, and they got to stop digging themselves a hole early in these games against the Lakers. But a lot of that is because they haven't been good shooting the ball from the perimeter, but they've also been settling for a lot of shots from the perimeter. So I don't know if that's what we're going to get here tonight for Denver early. I think it's going to be, all right, it's the Joker. Go get him. Let's see how many fouls we can rack up in the first half on these guys.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this sets up well for Jokic to have a monster game, especially if Murray doesn't play or is limited. The problem is he's off back-to-back triple-doubles. So I think all the value's kind of been priced out of the prop markets for that reason. But I'm in no hurry to fade Jokic at home in a bounce-back spot. And let's keep in mind, Denver never led in Game 4. They trailed by as many as 19 points. They trailed by 20 in the second half at home in Game 2, came back. They've trailed by double digits in every one of these games. But they are the superior team still. And the thin air and altitude, I do think, is an issue because we've seen it wasn't a coincidence that we saw the Lakers falter in both games 1 and 2. Game 3 may be a different story, but LeBron's played great. He's still almost 40 years old. So the extended series, the extended minutes, the thin air and altitude is not a friend for LeBron. And the Nuggets are used to it more than any team because it's their home court. AD also has disappeared in many games. In games 2 and 3, before they finally got the win on Saturday, he had over 60 points in games 2 and 3 combined in the first 3 quarters, and he had 2 points total in the 2 games in the fourth quarter. So he's another guy that has disappeared, another reason why the Lakers have blown all these leads.
Yeah, well, it's hello. And I guess we all have to be looking at D'Angelo Russell props here as well, BP. Don't we? There's absolutely no way. I am not betting an under on him in his points situation here tonight. Much better at home. But I just do not see him going into Denver here and having great success tonight. 15.5, I think, was his points prop here tonight, BP, with good old D'Angelo Russell.
Well, that's something we can just talk about big picture in the NBA playoffs. Role players always play better at home, right? I mean, you typically, if you're a role player, you want to look over if they're at home, under if they're on the road. That's often the difference, especially when you have the inferior team. The role players are even less likely, I think, to step it up on the road. So, yeah, I would concur with you there for sure.
Yeah, I would avoid D'Angelo Russell having any sort of evening here tonight for sure. Now, let's see what we got here. If Denver wins, Merril, we're being told to send some quality Sviadel cookies to a P.O. box. We'll go ahead and do that. Although that is not going to happen anytime soon. I also think here, Merril, of all of these games here tonight, it feels like the chat room here from most of the comments feel like the easiest one here is it would be between the Celtics and OKC. But is there any way for old shits and giggles parlay to put together here to combo maybe these 3 games here tonight? With the biggest question mark, although the market at 7.5 is telling us they have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen in this game tonight. It may not be as close as some of these Laker homers might want it to be. Is it all favorites here tonight, Merril? It just kind of feels like that kind of night.
Yeah, if you're doing a money line parlay, I'd have all 3 favorites involved. I think you're paying a premium, especially in that OKC line, because it's 4.5 to 5 versus 1.5 in Game 3. By the way, the Nugget game was 7.5. It's 7. Now it's 6.5 in a lot of spots. So the market is saying that they think that Murray probably might not play tonight, even though he's 50-50 questionable. But the money move down in that game tells me that some people are thinking Murray isn't going tonight. But once again, he's been scoring points, but he's 1 for 10 from 3-point range. And he's only one of the best shooters in the league. So this could be another one of those addition by subtraction. And as we all know, You just blindly play those shorthanded teams. Like, look at the Clippers. Like you said, they're 2-0 without Kawhi. They're 0-2 with them in the 4 playoff games. So Murray might not be as important as everybody thinks.
Yeah, I am kind of with you there. And let me just say this. S. Warrior is in here convincing the chat, BP, that the Celtics should not be included in any sort of money line parlay. He said Denver and OKC is good to go, but avoid betting the Celtics at all costs here tonight. That is shocking. I didn't see S. Warrior coming in here back in the heat at all. I don't know if that took you by shock there, BP. I really did think he would have just went all in on the Celtics, but no, he is not here. But I guess if there was going to be a dog to pull it out here tonight, what would your dog be as an outright winner?
As an outright winner, oh boy, New Orleans, I guess. I know that nobody wants to. I mean, I'm kind of with Steve that I'd be shocked if any of the underdogs did win outright. But I mean, just from the odds perspective, I mean, and again, we've all said it a million times. New Orleans was only a 1.5 point dog in game 3. So odds makers thought it was a fairly even matchup last game. Of course, that was wrong. But, you know, we've had the adjustment. I mean, I'd be stunned, honestly, if either Miami or the Lakers won. So it's sort of just processed by elimination, I guess, that would land me to New Orleans, to answer your question, Joe.
Oh, hell no. I'm with S. Warrior. It is Miami all the way. And I know that's probably shocking to a lot of people watching right now. Yeah. I'm with you, S. Warrior. We're going to ride or die, man. That's it with Miami tonight. He's now encouraging people to look at Bam, Caleb, and Tyler Hero props. So they have completely lost control in the chat rooms right now here. I am seeing Jaylen Brown over 2.5 threes. I am seeing also a big contingency of folks thinking Tatum points props over. I can't argue with any of that. And I think, Merril, you brought up a great point here. We've already had triple doubles all day long here with the Joker. Could we get another one at home in a closeout game? It's probably likely, although, like you said, it's probably already bet to the sky right now.
Yeah, what keeps me off it is just the fact he's off back-to-back triple-doubles. I like to take a contrarian zigzag view with props, especially in the playoffs. And one of the reasons is because long-term you get better line value. So you're definitely not getting value anymore with this prop. But on the other side, I'm not looking for him to regress. He's maybe the most dominant player in the league, and they're coming off a bad loss, and he's at home maybe without his side superstar. So, yeah, it's Jokic over props or pass, but I'll probably be passing more than not. And one thing I'll point out, I think the one live dog is New Orleans. And another reason, if you're looking for some kind of revert to the norm, I mean, the Pelicans in the last 2 games have shot 28 and 27% from 3, whereas Oklahoma City has shot 48 and 47. And that's why they won by over 20 in both games. I get that.
Yep.
But, you know, if anything somewhat reverts to the norm, then maybe the Pelicans could steal game 4 tonight.
Lex in the chat wants to know thoughts on a LeBron triple-double here, guys. Has he had one yet in this series? I don't know. Let's see if he has. I don't think he has, but I'll tell you right now, if he is, if we've got an opportunity on him for points, rebounds, and assists, I am seeing LeBron James 43.5 is the number I am seeing here, BP, right now for LeBron. That's his PRA here, and I don't know if they have the yes or no on a triple-double. But let's see, triple-double LeBron plus 650.
Well, the 26, 8, and 12, some simple math there, says that is 46. The other games, 27, 6, and 8, that's 41. Then he had 26, 6, and 9, that's 35. And for last game, 39, his lowest number, and that's the one they won, actually, despite him having both his lowest rebound and assist total, but it was his highest point total as well. I don't know. I guess. I mean, if you really like the Lakers, if you really like LeBron and you have some couch money you just want to throw for fun, I guess it's a wager to make. I don't think he's going to get a triple-double, though.
Well, how do we do it in the altitude with him, Merril? I can't. We already seen this story play out, right? I mean, are we banking that LeBron's going to dig deep enough at 106 years old in the second half while he's sucking wind? Like, I would fade triple double all day long here, Steve. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, like you said, it's around plus 650 to plus 750. So just say cut the difference. 7-1 is 87.5%. So there's only about a 12% chance it would even happen. It's lower than that because they're not giving you true odds. He only has one double-double in the 4 games so far in this series, and that was game 2 that Bryan talked about. Now, that did happen in the altitude. It's also when they had a 20-point blown lead in the second half. He only has one double-double in the 4 games in this series. That was minus 150, minus 155 each game. Now I'm seeing pick 'em. So the odds makers sure as hell aren't thinking he's doing it tonight. That's a double-double. And as far as a triple-double, he did do it once in the last 10 games I'm looking at here, and that was actually, believe it or not, against New Orleans on April 14th, I believe. So he's done it once, but it's not happening tonight, and he probably won't even get a double-double tonight.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking no. I would fade that and Murray here, but plenty of opportunities across the board to get involved in these games here tonight. Also, plenty of opportunities to get involved and partner up here with BP as well as RR1L. And BP, what do you got locked and loaded here tonight on the card? Plenty of baseball, NBA action. What do you got rolling here?
4% best bet in the NBA tonight, Joe, as well as 2 MLB plays. Everything up on my page, WT.buzz/BP. Coming off a 4-0 Sunday sweep, an 8-1 weekend, 21-10 all sports run. Steve mentioned his playoff run. I'm right behind him. I think he said he's 11-2. I am on a 10-3 playoff run. So here's to Steve and I continuing that great. Would love if we were just could be 1-2, win them all. Hey, if we both win them all, I'll be happy to be number 2 then behind Steve. 73% all NBA plays in the month of April. You go back to last year's final, we're up 60 units of net profit with all NBA selections. So one more time, that's 1 NBA 4% best bet, 2 MLB plays up at my page, WT.buzz/BP, off a 4-0 Sunday sweep.
Let me see here, Merril, before you tell us what you got. Seth in the chat room coming up with, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Lakers first half, Nuggets full game, plus 420 on that combo.
Yeah, so I do the daily NBA playoff video, and I get a lot of comments. I love it. I reply back, and several of the sharp viewers have said they've been doing that this entire series. Lakers first half, Nuggets full game. In the first 2 or 3 games, it was paying over 5-1. So I do think they've cut that back a bit. We did not see it work in game 4, but the Lakers did cover the first half, so it came close again. Would not be against it. I mean, it's amazing how these series have played out, and that's a pretty good return for something that's happened 3 out of 4 times. But I do think Denver pulls ahead and wins that game tonight and closes out the series after the bad loss in game 4. As Bryan said, we're both off to great starts in the NBA playoffs. It's not a fluke. I've been doing this for almost 30 years now. The NBA playoffs, I think, are the most consistent and predictable moneymaker year in and year out. I'm number 1 this year in the NBA coming into the playoffs. I'm number 1 all time at WagerTalk Units 1 in the NBA, and I'm adding to it with an 11-2 start now in the playoffs. And I'm also 4-1 over the past week in baseball along the way. I've been very selective in baseball. We'll be ramping that up soon. So combined, that's 15-3 all sports. We have swept the board 8 of the last 9 days since the playoffs began. And I'm looking to do it tonight with another strong NBA best bet. And I've got 2 advanced best bets for Tuesday posted right now as well. When you're a direct client, you get it instantly. So check out the rest of the playoff special for $195. But don't forget, tonight, Monday, is your last chance for 2 big specials on my page. No promo codes needed. The summer special for $5 a day, every baseball and basketball play till August 1st. Or if you want a smaller package, buy 3 days, get a 4th day for free. That's good tonight only as well. So check it out. And oh, by the way, bonus free baseball play on my page. So see the free baseball play, and then right below to those specials that expire tonight. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com.
Good stuff. We got some day drinking in the YouTube chat here now as well. Mistro157 says alternate line Lakers by 8. Whew. Yeah. Pass that cookie on over, man. No problem with munching on that brownie a little late afternoon here. My goodness. Absolutely out of control here. But the bottom line is these guys are locked and loaded, ready to roll. We certainly would appreciate a thumbs up, guys, if you could, or hit that subscribe button as well. Become part of the WagerTalk TV family. Shout out to those of you drinking on Instagram, hanging out with us this afternoon as always. YouTube Shorts, X also in the house, as well as Facebook. And of course, you guys know who you are. Seth, Catch You Slippin', Cheshire Cat, Big Daddy, John Finley. Money in the house. We appreciate you as always, my man, as well as James Bond. You guys rock. But hey, we got a couple more games still to go here before round one is over. And I know it's going to be interesting. A lot of big discussions coming up about if Denver wins tonight. So it would be Denver, Minnesota, not BP. Is that correct? That would be our next round? Boy,
that would be correct, sir.
We got it split in the middle here. We got a lot of arguments on both sides here on who would make it out of that one there. So we've got much still to get to here, guys. We appreciate you as always. Hit that like button. Come back and join us again tomorrow so we can all tell S. Warrior how right he was to back Miami here tonight. Until then, enjoy it, guys. Cash those tickets. We'll see you again tomorrow.